Back on the Young Turks. Now we're going to talk to David Sirota, author of The Hostile Takeover and the Uprising. He's written a piece called Are Progressive Special Interests Who Prevented Healthcare Reform for Decades? Interesting question. David, welcome back to the Young Turks.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
All right, David, first let's answer that question. Is it our fault? Have we been preventing healthcare reform for all these years?
Well, obviously I don't think so. I think that the insurance industry and the drug industry have been preventing health insurance reform, healthcare reform for decades, and I think a campaign finance system that allows those interests to buy off the Congress have been preventing that. The reason I posed that question in the article I wrote was because President Obama, I guess it was, 2 days ago now, portrayed the initial passage of the Senate-written health care bill as a victory over special interests that had been furiously lobbying against the particular bill. And the fact of the matter is that when you actually look at what normal people define as special interests, which is usually, the drug industry, the health insurance industry, they haven't been lobbying against this bill at all. They have been for this bill. There was a Politico story about how one insurance industry insider emailed to reporters a simple message after the bill was introduced and passed, and the message said, "We win." So you start asking yourself a question, well, if President Obama is saying that this bill represents a victory over the special interests, who does he define as special interests? Because right now, the only people who are really putting up any kind of grassroots fight against this bill are progressives who are saying that this bill is not okay. Now, certainly Republicans are putting up a fight against this. I think the Republican grassroots is putting up a fight based on partisan grounds. But in terms of the ideology, the actual policy of this, the people who are putting up the real grassroots fight now are progressives who are saying this bill is a sellout.
On a similar note, in the financial reform, I read an article, I think it was in the New York Times today, where they talked to people about these giveaways to the banks and how much money they're making, et cetera. And one of the bankers said, well, look, normally we don't really like Democrats around here, but I got to tell you, I really like Tim Geithner. And that made me think, yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah, that's the whole point here, is that what we're learning, I think, about the Obama administration is that the president talks a very, very good game, and he talks frankly, a progressive game. He talks about how he wants to take on the special interests, how he wants to take on big money interests. I mean, it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where he said Wall Street bankers are fat cats who are ripping off Americans. Meanwhile, at the same time he's saying that, he's pushing a financial reform bill that, by every honest measure, is a serious giveaway to the financial industry. And so you start wondering, who does this White House define as its opposition? Clearly it does not define the powers that be as its opposition or as its obstacle.
Hey, David, let me ask you a quick question about that before we move on to why it's so important to oppose the bill, in your estimation. Are the insurance companies, I know pharma's running ads in favor of the bill, so they love it. They think they're going to make a lot of money off of it. And some other groups are as well, some other healthcare groups. But the insurance companies, the ones that were supposed to be this big roadblock, are they even running any ads against it right now?
No, that's the thing. The insurance industry has gone completely silent. The American Health Insurance Plans, which is it's called AHIP, it's the trade association in Washington that represents the insurance industry, they have gone completely and totally silent. I mean, as far as I can tell, the only people who are genuinely lobbying against this bill in any real kind of way are progressives. I mean, I think that you've seen the unions make some noise about how they don't like parts of this, but I have not been able to detect any genuine, what you might call special interest opposition to this bill whatsoever.
Now, we did show a little while ago John Cornyn, Republican from Texas, of course. He seemed to be upset that the insurance companies have won here. When he was on Dylan Ratigan's program on MSNBC, he said, look, I can't believe the Democrats gave this big giveaway to the insurance companies. David, you must be ecstatic to find out that John Cornyn is a populist who's on your side.
Well, I mean, Cenk, this is the political danger. I mean, I don't obviously believe that John Cornyn cares that the insurance industry is ripping off the taxpayers and getting a big giveaway here. But in my book, The Uprising, what I wrote about was that if Democrats, if they cede the populist mantle, the mantle of fighting for the little guy, if they don't fulfill that legislatively after the 2008 election, that Republicans, not in an honest way, but in a dishonest way, will seize that mantle themselves. And you've seen this now across many issues. You see John Thune, the South Dakota Republican senator, saying that he's going to lead the fight to shut down the bank bailout. Now you see John Cornyn saying he can't believe this bill is such a big giveaway to the insurance industry. You see in the Senate Banking Committee, most of the votes against Ben Bernanke, the Wall Street connected insider who fell down on the job before the economic collapse. Most of the votes against him were from Republicans. So I think Republicans are cynically, but definitely dangerously seizing that populist mantle. And I think, unfortunately, it's because Democrats are giving it to them.
So I'm going to talk about that in a second. I just want to make a quick note here. I distinguish between people who mean it genuinely and those who don't. So Jim Bunning is as crazy as it gets, but I think he really was against Bernanke, and that was not some cynical ploy on his part.
Oh, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely true. And same thing with Ron Paul. Ron Paul has a Fed transparency bill. Look, the Republican Party has a very small minority of people in it who, on specific issues, are what you would call genuine. When I used to work in Congress, we called them honest conservatives. My point is only this, is that because the Democrats have offered up such an opportunity, the corporate conservatives, the really not what genuine Republicans, not genuine conservatives, are suddenly following the small minority in their party who are genuine conservatives, honest conservatives, because it's politically opportune.
Because if they were genuine conservatives and they really fought against the corporate interest for the little guy, I'd be on their side. There'd be no reason not to be on their side. John McCain is actually a shocking but good example of that. Joined Maria Cantwell in trying to bring Glass-Steagall back. More power to him. Fantastic.
That's absolutely right. And look, John McCain, I think, he has danced between the corrupt Republican establishment and I wouldn't call him a genuine conservative, but having genuine politics. And I think he's for reasons of opportunism right now. He is shifting a little bit more back to the John McCain of 2000. Now, then you may ask, well, was the John McCain of 2000 actually ever genuine? Well, who the heck knows? But between him signing on to the Cantwell bill to restore Glass-Steagall, he was a guy who's saying that Obama should have passed this drug importation amendment to allow Americans to buy cheaper prescription drugs from other industrialized nations. Obama campaigned on it, flip-flopped on it. McCain now is part of the fight to pass that bill. So it's the opportunism here, and I think they are trying to steal the mantle of populism from the Democrats.
We're talking to David Sirota. He would know a thing or two about that. He wrote The Hostile Takeover and The Uprising, very much about populism. So, David, let's go to the danger of this bill. And if Democrats and liberals and progressives don't oppose it enough, right, what perception will that leave with the American people?
Well, I think it would leave with the American people a sense, and you're speaking of the Republicans, right?
No, I'm saying if the progressives and liberals don't oppose the bill enough.
I see.
Okay.
Well, yeah, here, and this is the point. That we're really playing, everyone talks about how Obama is playing three-dimensional chess here, and that's always the sort of story that people say, well, he's not actually doing what he seems to be doing, he's got a grand master plan. Well, maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But as progressives, I think if we think that that's true, we have to have our own plan, and our own plan needs to be this. There is a value in saying right now, at this moment, that this bill is not acceptable. There is a value in doing that because that will create the political pressure to make this bill as good as it can be in the conference committee between the House and Senate, and it will create the pressure to ultimately force Congress, if and when this bill passes, to come back to the table. If you think that the Congress is going to come back to the table after this bill passes because it wants to come back and fix all of the things even the bill proponents say are wrong with this, then you're crazy. They don't want to come back to this. So right now we have an opportunity, an obligation really, to say that this bill is not nearly good enough. it's not acceptable to create the political pressure for Congress to come back to this bill and fix what is not okay about it in the future.
You know, there's the political aspect of this, David, which is, okay, look, one, we can't be perceived as being happy with the result of this bill, because if we do, then people think, well, this is the health care reform we wanted, when it wasn't what we wanted. It was a huge compromise to conservatives, right? So there's that aspect of it. And then there's also the policy aspect to it as well, though. And talk to me a little bit more about that, as far as if the American people are convinced that this is a liberal bill, what kind of damage might that do?
Right. I mean, if the American people are convinced that this is a liberal bill and liberals got everything they wanted, and then the shortcomings that we clearly know are going to come from this bill happen, as they will happen, then the public will say, wow, liberals, progressives really foisted on us everything that they supposedly wanted, and everything that they supposedly wanted came up very short. That's why it's important to set the benchmark. Now, look, let me recount a story from my old boss, Bernie Sanders, in the House. When Bill Clinton passed the controversial budget in 1993, there is a famous exchange where he told Bernie Sanders, the progressive member of the House, he said, you know, I wish you on the progressive side had pushed me, had even criticized me more than you would criticize me, because it would have given me a leverage point to go back to the Republicans and to go back to independent voters and say, look, I'm being pushed hard here by progressives. If progressives simply fall in line, knowing that this bill falls far short of their goals, we are being complicit. We are not helping pull the political debate around health care to where it needs to be.
All right, but David, let's take that to its logical conclusion, because right now it doesn't appear that Barack Obama or Rahm Emanuel want us to be tougher on them. Whenever anyone is, they're very dismissive, and they say they're throwing tantrums and et cetera, as they did with Howard Dean. So would you then counsel Bernie Sanders, your former boss, or Feingold or Franken, to say, no, I vote no if you don't have the public option or Medicare buy-in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, let me take them in two parts. First of all, what the White House, which is the political establishment these days, I mean, that's typical. No politician likes to be criticized. No White House likes to be criticized. That is absolutely 100% typical. And you look back through history that every successful movement that we look back and we venerate was criticized in similar kinds of ways. Oh, you're asking for too much. Oh, you're throwing a tantrum. Oh, you're immature. Oh, you're unrealistic. I mean, every single successful movement in the country's history has gotten that kind of blowback. Would I tell Bernie Sanders, Al Franken, the progressives in the Senate to vote no? Absolutely, I would tell them to vote no. Do I expect them to vote no? No. Is there a value? Now, here's where I mean about three-dimensional chess, movement politics. Look, the progressive movement is different than the politicians. Bernie Sanders and Al Franken may vote for this bill. But that doesn't mean there's not a value in progressives saying you should not vote for this bill. Because when we say you should not vote for this bill, we are setting down benchmarks. Look, if I had to choose, if this bill passes, if there's two choices, the bill passes and every single part of the progressive Democratic coalition says this bill is great, or if this bill passes and there's a strong faction of progressives saying this bill is not good, they should have voted it down, I would choose the latter, because that says that we are not satisfied with this and we are going to continue making demands.
Well, I agree with that 100%. But you've got to answer the question, though, because I don't think bluffing is good enough. If you were,
well, I'm not saying it's bluffing. I mean, I'm telling you.
If you were Senator Sirota from Colorado, would you vote yes or no?
I would vote no. I would. Yeah, and let me explain to you why. And I should tell you, USA Today tomorrow is going to have an editorial endorsing this bill, and they asked me to write the opposing view, vote yes or no, and I said vote no, and it's an editorial all about that. And my point is simply this: the only reason to vote not to vote no is based on a procedural expectation. You hear this, the argument, oh, this is our last chance, this is our only chance. That is an artificially manufactured rationale that has no empirical basis. when you actually look at how much the Democratic Party has invested, the White House has invested in passing quote unquote something. There's quotes all throughout the meeting. We got to pass something. Then you would see that they couldn't walk away like they walked away in 1994. Last I checked, we have a whole year of the Senate and the House and the presidency being controlled by Democrats. Last I checked, the Obama administration has said repeatedly, we need to pass something. If the progressives in the Senate said this is not enough, there is positively no way the Democrats would be able to walk away. They would have to come back to the negotiating table, and they would have to meet at least some of the demands that the progressives have made.
All right. Well, when you find Democrats that strong, get back to us and let us know. Okay?
Yeah, well, I wish they were out there.
All right. David Sirota, author of The Hostile Takeover and The Uprising. Thanks for joining us on The Young Turks.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
All right. We'll be right back.